course, one of the most important parts of restoring a powerboat is the power. The engines. Tapawinga had been repowered several times over the years. The engine she had in her when Dan bought the boat had been installed in 1950, right after her military service. At the time of this restoration, they were now over 50 years old. The plan was to remove these engines and replace them with new diesels. A good mechanic friend of Dan Carter's asked to have a look at the engines. He told Dan that these are the best marine engines that were ever built. Dan's friend Larry Byward broke the engines completely down, couldn't mic anywhere in any of the cylinders or bearings, and the decision was made to overhaul the engines and reinstall them. I must admit, at the time, I did not think this was a good idea. These Chrysler Majestics are a 6-cylinder, flathead, gasoline engine with 2 updraft carburetors apiece. And Dan was a smoker. But like he said, the boat's had these types of engines in her whole life, and it's never been a problem. I now have changed my thinking on this, and I believe that this was the right decision. These engines are very smooth and quiet, and there is not the smell of diesel exhaust. With a 4-inch cylinder bore, the engine has a lot of low-end torque, and you don't have the noise of a high-revved engine. All in all, it makes for a very pleasant boating experience. Working in the restoration business, you can learn a lot. Sometimes, the best things you learn when you don't change things, when you keep it original. You learn why it was done that way in the first place. Now, with all the structural work on the hull complete and the engines in place, it was time to do the bottom coatings. Because Athena had been out of the water for so long, the hull planking was completely dry. This would allow us to use epoxy coatings. I have been doing this for some time, and the epoxy coatings keep the hull planking completely dry. This virtually eliminates osmosis, delignification, and the electrolysis that attacks the fasteners. We first give the hull a light sand with 36 grit paper. This fares in the polyurethane seam compound and gives a great tooth for the epoxy. Our first coat is with a slow cure epoxy laminating resin. We use a foam roller and a brush. We go around and around, hitting all the dry spots over and over again until the wood will take no more. We come back the next day before the epoxy is fully cured and put another coat of that same resin on. It is fairly easy in the next 2 days to come back with a scraper and a plane and scrape and plane off any nubbles or runs or drips. When we do this, we make sure and not go back to bare wood, or we'll have to recoat those areas. We then roll on several coats of the epoxy barrier coat. Several paint companies have formulated these coatings to protect fiberglass boats from blistering. They form a water barrier so that no water through osmosis is transferred into the hull. They also are designed to create a good substrate for the modern bottom paints. As per manufacturer specification, we apply 5 or more coats of this barrier coat. Between coats, we have a chance to glaze in the lows with epoxy putty. As per manufacturer's suggestions, the first coat of anti-fouling bottom paint has to be put on before the last coat of a barrier coat is fully cured. This provides a chemical bond between the coatings. I have been using this method now for over 25 years. And whenever I've had to go back to pull fasteners for insurance companies or surveyors, the planking and the fasteners are in like new condition. The bottom paint is not flaking or peeling. New bottom paint can be applied, and the boat's good to go. Which is what we can do now, make our great escape from the boatyard, so that we can continue on with the rest of the restoration in the water. In the next videos, we will go over how we did the decks, the cabin tops, and the interior. These videos are made possible by efforts through the Maritime Preservation Trust. Your contributions and support make these videos possible. Please don't forget to subscribe, share with your friends, and become a member of the Maritime Preservation Trust.